4 kids, right? Trying to like find a place to work and help and like work, do family at the same time. Like that's the other resilient story here. Like we're all these employees, the 500 I'm talking about, are stuck at home. They're with their families. They're trying to make that work. They're trying to make work, and they're trying to save these small businesses at the same time. But like this, what happened was the core mission of Intuit was just magnified dramatically, like with a massive magnifying glass with the acuteness of COVID, to say, hey, let's just like all lean in as a company to go do what we can do to save these businesses. Like that core culture allowed us to like just move mountains to make this happen and deploy like $1 billion to our customers, and I think we saved 31,000 small businesses. We think we helped almost 200,000 employees and continue to get paid. So the team is so absolutely proud of what we've done over the last 4 months. Like just this culmination of unique events where Intuit is so uniquely positioned to help, and like we succeeded and did it, and it just energizes the team so much. Like how do we keep that momentum going, I think, and continue to help these customers come out the other side, right?
That's amazing. The focus on the customer and how the mission kept you, I guess, motivated and focused. But what about the reverse direction? So it sounds like you did help your customers through this time period, incredible scale. How did your team and other employees come out stronger through this time period?
It like gave you a rallying cry to come behind. So we had to do partnerships with the payroll team. Like we needed to get the data from the API, the TurboTax team pulling that data, the QBO team to help have the QBO team stand up that front end experience for the back end that we built to make these loans. The legal and compliance team moved mountains here, just to like handle the changing regulation over time, to fix like what the product team was building, and having to redo that several times. So it wasn't just the capital team, right? It was 500 people across Intuit. We had to pull in 100 care agents to help with the onboarding, to handle the 10% of applications that were not fully automated, right? I think that it just like flowed out to the rest of the organization, and like it's a story that the entire company can rally around. Like the fact that we did help these businesses. We also had another initiative led by our futures team in Barath Kadaba that was the Intuit 8 Assist website. So even if you weren't a payroll customer or a TurboTax customer of Intuit, you could go to this public website and enter in some information, and it would tell you what stimulus relief you could qualify for, whether it was EIDL or PPP or otherwise. Same thing on the consumer side. The TurboTax team helped so many consumers register to get the electronic stimulus check instead of having to wait on a paper check. Just so many teams rallied across the company just to like help the consumers and the small businesses that are struggling right now survive. And it's not over, right? The $600 stimulus check's about to be gone. What do we do next? The same thing on the small business side. The PPP program was supposed to be a 2.5-month bridge. It's been 4 months. Mm-hmm. We need more public policy to push on like helping small businesses get restarted, right? I think like this theme just keeps rolling and rolling, and Intuit's position to help in all these things. It spreads across the whole organization.
I get it, Luke, man, your passion for helping small business is infectious. I can feel it. So I want to go back to something you said earlier and maybe drill down a little bit further. So I want to hear more about your work helping small businesses grow and thrive. And in particular, given the impact that COVID-19 has had on them, like how are you guys using
I'm having audio difficulties here. Is it possible for me to dial in from the phone as well?
Yes. Would you like to hop on over?
It's freezing a bit. My connection's not great. I'm going to dial in from the phone real quick.
Okay. We will wait here. We'll be here for you.
Yeah. It's a 214 phone number if you want to promote that one to speaker as well. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that.
No worries. We had to do the same thing also earlier. A lot of Zoom conferences today.
Okay. It's a 214 number.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you on the phone.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry, no, stop the mic there. Okay. Sorry about that. So where were we at?
I was saying that your passion for helping small business is totally infectious. Like I can feel it, and it's incredible. But I want to dig a little bit deeper there. So Can you tell us a little bit more how you guys are using the QuickBooks platform to help small businesses recover?
Yeah, I think let me give a little context for like what that platform is. The QuickBooks brand and the TurboTax brand are pretty well known, but there's more businesses in Intuit, and so I would call it the ecosystem. So if you look back, you can see that like Scott Cook started this business in 1983, right? He started with a personal finance management software. Like the first customer was his wife at the kitchen table. She was struggling to help figure out like all of the personal finances of the family. So he built Quicken, right? And he built that software, I think it was on the DOS operating system written in Pascal, right? This is how old of a Fintech Intuit is and like where that platform really started, right? The customer focus started then as well. Like it comes through with like Scott noticing that Minnie and the PM teams noticing that the Quicken customers were actually using the software to manage their small business finances. So like there's a massive aha moment. Okay, let's build an accounting software that's just as easy as Quicken. Let's call it QuickBooks. So that's where QuickBooks gets started, right? So you have QuickBooks written for the desktop. Intuit's had to reinvent itself multiple times, right? You have to rewrite Quicken and like for Windows. Like Windows didn't even exist when they wrote the first version of Quicken. So for Windows, like I don't know, it's like early 90s, I guess. Like having to rewrite the entire stack of software to work with what the future is back then, which is it's just nuts to think about, given like how far we've come from like DOS in 1983 to now. That's a whole different conversation, but. And then taking the QuickBooks desktop and into the cloud, like managing through that transition, we disrupted ourselves by creating a cloud-based accounting software and lead customers through that. And now it's mobile. Like you get through 2008 and you get through Hadoop and you get through cloud-based services and the iPhone and going to mobile. Like this transition just keeps happening over and over again for Intuit. The resilience of Intuit as a corporation, reinventing itself over time is another theme here. Along that same time frame, Intuit adds the tax business. So TurboTax, helping millions of consumers do their taxes in an efficient way over time. We added a payroll business and a payments business over time to help small businesses do those kind of mundane tasks that nobody really wants to do, but you have to do, like tax and accounting and like processing payroll and processing payments. Like all of these things we're trying to automate to help these customers like get more time for their family and get more time to just run their business. The last business that like I'm part of, right? We've over the last 4.5 years built a brand new lending business called Capital. And so if you put all of these pieces together, I think the way I think about the platform, at least on the small business side, at least is I'm leading a business. Like I have access to a general counsel, an HR team, like the legal team, a CFO, like a controller, like audited financial statement, all of this massive amount of support to run a business. Our small business customers on the QuickBooks side don't have access to any of that. Like we're trying to democratize that expertise down the stack to really help these businesses do what they want to do on an ongoing basis. I think TurboTax Live is an amazing example of this. But the TurboTax Live is an amazing example of using experts to then help on top of an AI process. So if you take the next stage into its like evolution and growth from cloud to mobile is what we're calling the AI-driven expert like future of what QuickBooks and TurboTax are. So we recognize that there are not that AI can't solve every problem. There's a massive need for true expertise to come over the top to make sure things were done correctly or like help train the AI to move forward. TurboTax Live is an amazing example of that, right? Like we have a knowledge engine that is AI and machine learning that like minimizes the number of questions you have to answer to file your taxes, right? And you, at the end of the day, though, if you're still uncomfortable with where your taxes landed, you can add a QuickBooks Live agent. So remotely in the product, drop in a human to say, hey, yeah, I just reviewed everything. It looks great. You may want to change these few things. Like that just adds so much confidence to these businesses that are like stuck remotely. Like they can't go to their accountant's office or can't go into a physical like location to help with their taxes, but you make it super easy for them to self-serve. And then you add on this like confidence building layer on top that really helps people like that. We're positioned pretty well to handle this disruptive like shift to digital, right? To help all of these small businesses who are trying to run their businesses without the ability to go into the bank even. Like how do we like run this business? So like we're positioned, the ecosystem and platform are positioned so well to continue to add these features and allow small businesses to just do what they do best, which is serve their customers and grow their business and spend more time with their family. I'm super excited about where Intuit sits like on the spectrum now, like where we're at, what we're able to achieve now with where technology is now. It's just amazing.
I got it. Let's talk a little more about QuickBooks' role in the Paycheck Protection Program. I believe you guys became a fintech lender in April. Can you tell me about the progress the company has made and maybe quantify it with the number of loans you've processed, et cetera?
Yeah, this is like, it seems like years ago right now, but it really started like in early March, right? It's been 4 months. Like what the team accomplished and what the administration frankly accomplished in the last 4 months is just pretty amazing. As I talked earlier, like when we realized how uniquely positioned we were, like that was the rallying cry. Like we have to do this. Like, let's make sure, like when we saw the CARES Act, for example, at the very beginning, we saw it was going to be SBA and it was going to be banks, but fintech wasn't mentioned yet. So like, how do we play? Like, we can help. We know we can help. We can automate applications. We can make this faster. Let us in. So we talked to the Treasury directly. We talked to the SBA directly. We talked to Congress, like tons of different senators and congressmen, just to make sure that fintech would be allowed to participate and play here. Talk to the like multiple Federal Reserve banks across the country. Just like how can we help design this to make it work for small businesses? We have a ton of small business expertise. Let us engage. Let us help. So we did that and we engaged. And I think what was it like it was late March, I guess, when they started allowing in fintechs or announced that they were going to let fintechs in. We started building our application, I think, on April 3rd, and we opened that application to the public on April 14th. So it was literally like 11 days of massively shifting everything that we had built for Capital over to this new application process. The end point of that was just the application is completed. We're not going to submit it to the SBA yet because we haven't built the integration into eTrans yet. So you do it serially. Like, you build the piece you can build as fast as you can to help the customer, and then build the infrastructure after that to actually make stuff happen. But if, like, just to take a step back again, with our payroll business and our TurboTax business and our capital business, like, we had all the pieces we needed to make a super efficient application, right? So customers that came in, 90% of them were on an automated path. 10%, we had to do some more identity checks to make sure we knew who they were, but 90% made it through. They were our existing payroll customers. They're our existing TurboTax customers that have filed taxes through us. So we know them, and we could bring them through in an automated way. It was, I think the application itself took like just a few minutes on average for people to complete. In the last month or two, we've been approving most customers within 10 minutes. Like, you'll have the SBA loan number immediately and say, hey, you're actually approved. You'll get your money tomorrow, right? Like, that process from starting the app to completing it, like, from the customer's perspective is pretty amazing. You come in and like, you'll see an offer that says, hey, like you actually probably qualify for PPP, and here's the amount, right? Consent to let us use your information to actually do the full underwrite and get you through the process. And it's fully automated. It's like, it pops up the personal information. Like, is this you? Is this who you are? Is this where you live? Yes, one click, right? Next page, business information. Like, is this your business? Like, this is what we have. Like, yes, it is. Click. There's a bunch of certifications you have to make for PPP program. And there's a bunch of data we bring in from either payroll or TurboTax, depending on whether you're payroll or SE. Self-employed, and that complicated part of the application for most banks is, okay, give me your 941 form. Let's calculate what your average monthly payroll is. Like, we had that. It was automatically calculated and dropped in. Customer could review it, go back into the payroll system, review it, make the certifications and consents they needed to do. But that means it's like 5-click process plus a couple check boxes, and then you're done. Like, just literally a few minutes. Like, that's pretty rare to have an application that's that fast, and then be able to fund it the next day because the API integration with the eTrans system was automatic as well. So the mountains the team moved to build that was amazing. I think the other thing we're most proud of is the customer base we actually served with this. If you look at the QuickBooks business, I think we have 6 million small businesses in the U.S. that are using either the QuickBooks Self-Employed, QuickBooks Desktop, or QuickBooks Online software. We have 1.4 million small businesses that run payroll through our payroll business. And if you look at what those employers look like, they are the smallest of the small. They are the mom and pops on Main Street that have, I think 80% of them have less than 10 employees. 57% have less than 5 employees. So these are the smallest of the small businesses. And we made it such a simple application for them to just click through. Like, imagine them going to their bank and being told that, yeah, you don't have a loan with us, we can't help you. Like, you can't even go to the bank, right? Like, to stand up this process for the smallest of the small underserved businesses that need to help these like mainly hourly wage employees. it feels great. Like, that's the payoff for the business, that for the individuals in this business, the 500 people that worked on this to make it all happen. Like, we opened up the access to that underserved population that they just weren't getting served elsewhere. Like, that was the point of bringing in fintech, and it worked, and we're super proud of that. I think that's the PPP story. Like, at the end of the day, we ended up funding 31,000 small businesses. We funded over $1 billion, I believe we helped keep almost 200,000 employees on the payroll. Like, those numbers are amazing. That's what the team is focused on. Every single one of those businesses and employees are a customer story. Like, this, help save my business. We see so many examples of it. When you, it just blows my mind when you take it to that scale. Like, there's 30,000 stories of businesses that were saved. There's 200,000 stories of employees that got to get a paycheck and keep going. Like, that's why we're doing this. It's such a powerful mission that it just, the team rallies around something like that, and the resilience that it drives the resilience, right? It gives you the confidence and power behind you to just go do, and makes you resilient. And the whole team felt that.
So I want to talk a little bit more about what the team felt. So you have this 500-member team across the organization, moving mountains, moving very quickly. Internally, how have your peers, how have other employees sort of reacted, responded to this work? Clearly you're passionate and you feel like the time is well worth spent, but can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, the ambiance?
Yeah, I mean, just given the scale of this, we had, I think the way we could track it and monitor it was through Slack, honestly. There's no way you could have done this in any other way. We're mobile, we're all at home. How do you coordinate enough to stand up something like this in 2 weeks? Everybody becomes part of that core team because everybody's tracking the same stuff in the same Slack channel. We had this one Slack channel called PPP Loans, the main channel where we had everyone from Scott Cook, the founder, was in the Slack channel. Sasan was in there, Alex, Chris, every leader on his leadership team on down to the entire team that was working on it. To be able to put together a mission team that is the entire corporate stack where everybody's seeing what's going on and fully plugged into it. It becomes contagious, right? This energizing fact flows through that Slack channel, frankly, and people are excited. They're posting customer stories. We're hitting wins, we're having challenges, we're breaking through those. But that Slack experience allows you to go. And we labeled them PPP. Every Slack channel I have for PPP started with PPP. There's 40 of them on the side of my Slack. There's so many separate teams working on this, trying to bring it all together and make it work. It would never have happened otherwise. But I think that the community that Slack allows on an ongoing basis, it's just contagious. I really believe that most of the folks on my team and on all the other teams that worked on this felt the same way. They were working unbelievable hours and not complaining about it. They were getting it done for the customer. It was pretty amazing.
So that was my next question. Given the groundswell of support for it, organizationally, did people work longer hours? You said they did, but they were giving up at their own personal time to make this happen. Pizza parties, what's going on in the background?
I mean, in the thick of it, the first 2 months, there was no time for anything else. The resilience flows through to all of the wives and husbands and the children as well, right? They knew what we were trying to do and they fully supported us. I said it before, I had a box sitting on top of my son's dresser in his bedroom, to have a stand-up desk, because I started out sitting down all day and it was just not working. So I had to you have to figure out what works, right? You end up figured out a standing desk in my son's room, figured out the schedule with the kids. They were all in school still at that time, right? How do you homeschool 3 kids and have a baby? We have an 8-month-old. So my team has seen that my son Charles grow up, right? I would have the baby every morning from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. so my wife could sleep in. And the call started that early. I was on with who was a 4-month-old and is now an 8-month-old, right? So the whole team is seeing it grow up. It just brings you are bringing your whole self to work, right? In that sense, right? That is it. Everybody gets to see, peek into your life at the same time that you're on the same team with them. It actually, the culture it builds is just unbelievable. You get to know people more. It forces that. The one challenge that I've seen though on once this settles down a bit, the question is how do you keep that feeling going? You have new employees come in that don't know the team members. So we set up a weekly coffee chat where we randomize the teams and have a leader of 7 or 8 different rooms, and you have hopefully less than 10 people in each. And you can get to know each other. Just talk about whatever we're going to talk about. People get to know each other on different teams. You have to figure out ways to to bring people together on an ongoing basis to make it feel like you're part of the team. That's the challenge now. Like the core mission drives people through that, but like when things settle, it's going to be more challenging to like keep that feeling alive and keep that like core mission going, right?
That makes a lot of sense. We'll have to invite you back to next year's resilience to see if that ethos is still powering the mission.
Yes, we'll see.
I want to switch gears a little bit and talk really about customers at this point. So I know the rules and regulations are changing all the time. How are you guys coaching small businesses to manage the forgiveness process and I guess to optimize that? What steps do they take? Like how are you guys communicating that?
Yeah, I mean, we are heads down building again, right? The forgiveness process is actually more complicated to build than the application process was. We had access to like real-time data for the application. For the forgiveness process, you have to take documents. You have to have proof of the rent that you spent. You have to have proof of the other qualifying expenses like utilities, canceled checks. And so the advice right now to the customers is make sure you're tracking all of that. Use QuickBooks to track it, like keep the paper receipts, keep all that documentation because you will need it when you file for forgiveness. There's an easy app that helps, but you still have to justify, like you still have to validate and certify the amount that you spent to get the forgiveness. So it's track it very carefully, like guide our customers through that. But our core focus is leveraging the technology that we have at Intuit to make that application process super easy if we can, right? It's been a challenge, but we're doing it. We're taking the knowledge engine that I described earlier from the TurboTax to limit the number of questions you have to answer. So we're applying that knowledge engine to the forgiveness process to allow customers to come through the right path based on what they have, like production and employees. Like if you guys look at like what the IFR says from the SBA on how to do forgiveness, I would advise any small, like if you didn't have the tools of someone like Intuit, you would need an accountant and an attorney to understand how to fill out that application. It's that complicated. That's why they've shifted to an easy application to make it easier. And that's why there's a massive push right now to just automatically forgive any loan under $150,000. If the customer certifies that they qualify, they should just get it. Like there's so much churn happening right now because of the public policy desire to limit fraud and like limit other things that it's a massive strain on the banks' operating capabilities. Like we're set up in a way to automate this with machine learning and technology that we use on TurboTax to try to help. The banks don't have that. It's going to be very difficult to manage all of those applications coming through. And we strongly believe that the right thing to do is just automatically forgive anything under 150. All right, that would make a massive difference to helping these small businesses recover. They've made this bridge of 2.5 months with these PPP dollars, and it's been 4. They need money to restart. We need more public policy to help them restart. And like fixing this forgiveness part would go a long way to do that. We are still trying to make it as easy as possible given what we have, and we're building it as fast as we can. But it's like the message to the customer is like, we're building it, track your data very carefully and be ready to submit. And when in August, we're expecting the SBA to open up that forgiveness process, like whatever it is, again, right? Like we have to build with an unknown endpoint and have to integrate it quickly as soon as we're ready to go, right? So it's being flexible and being ready for when the SBA stands it up, and we'll be ready to go. And hopefully our customers will be too.
Yeah, there's still a lot of uncertainty here. And, you know, as parts of the country are starting to reenter or thinking about starting to reenter, what do you see as the next phase of the journey as customers kind of come back online?
Yeah, I mean, for our capital business, we are, as of a couple of weeks ago, starting to reopen credit, right? We can see in the data which businesses and which geographies are recovering. And it's easy to then narrow, we have to narrow and target those that are doing well. And we can monitor and see how their businesses are like shifting into the like upward trajectory. So we, as a capital business, are going to open as fast as we can to start serving these businesses. There is a real need right now for another round of public policy here. The consumer checks are ending in a couple of days, like the extra $600 a month. That consumer spending follow-on will roll through. It's going to be tough, like even for the small businesses. If you look at the U.S. economy by itself, like there's no way to get the engine going again unless you have small businesses like going again. Like they are what drive the economy. Like they really are. And if we can't help the small businesses recover, then I don't think the economy recovers. And so there's a real need for public policy now that's focused on the small business itself. Like this last round was the Paycheck Protection Program. The public policy was to keep employees paid. keep the businesses open and afloat for that bridge period. But there's a need for a restart. Like how do we fund businesses restarting? They had more cash on hand when PPP started, and now they have a bridge. Now they have less cash on hand. Like it's even worse now. So we need public policy to focus on the small business and how the small business can get the capital it needs to rehire and regrow and start again. Versus like focusing on the past and the forgiveness. Like we have to get past this and let the businesses just go. So we're happy to continue to engage with the administration. Like throughout this entire process, we've been working very closely with the highest levels of the Treasury, with the highest levels of the SBA. I've been on the phone with like many of the Federal Reserve banks in the U.S. trying to figure out how to make all this work and brainstorming on like what could be next. Like what should we focus on to help? Like the Main Street lending program is one for the larger businesses. How do we figure out something else that can work for the smaller businesses, less than 100 employees, less than 50 employees? Like let's really help the small businesses go. And so there's a real need for us to all work together to figure out what's next and like really recharge small businesses and help them move forward.
Interesting. So you started out your conversation talking about how you and your team have been, in the way you develop the products, the way you develop sort of these interim products and programs was very much, you had your finger on their pulse. How do you continue to stay close to your customers during this time period?
I mean, that's the core thing that Intuit does best. It's called CDI and Design for Delight, right? We're building, there's a big focus on cash flow management tools right now, for example, right? The data we use for underwriting in QuickBooks Capital, like we have machine learning models that have for credit scores to predict risk. We have invoice models that predict when invoices will get paid. We have cash flow prediction models that can project out the next month or two, like what we think the cash flow is going to look like. So for risk reasons, like we built those pretty powerful tools. You can turn around and then show those attributes and insights back to the customer, right? So we built a cash flow tool based on that the capital data and insights and the validated data that we feel like is accurate. So you can make a risk decision and you share it back with the customer and say, hey, it looks like you're going to be tight on cash flow here, but that whole process is, okay, this is what it looks like now. Use it. Tell us what you think. Like, let's sit down with you and go through it. And you do that hundreds and hundreds of times with the designers to have them, you do it until it's a delightful experience. Like you have to go through it with the customer to understand how they're using it. You get lost in the fog of design and product. You think it should be like this. It feels intuitive like this, but you're an N of one. You have no idea. You need to test it with your actual customer base. And Intuit is so good at that. Like that's just one example of a product and staying close. Like the cash flow tool right now is super important. Like businesses are really tight. They need to understand what the next month looks like. Like I was a distressed investor that used to do 13-week cash flows like on larger corporates. Like there's a lot of there's so many similarities between the large businesses and the small and the tools that you have. You have to hire like $1,000 an hour consulting firm to help you do it for a large business. We're trying to make it part of a SaaS software package for free and automate it. Like and then like have the customers tell us what's working and what's not. Like there's so many powerful things we can build, and we do it in the same way Scott did back in the day. Like it's called Follow Me Homes. He literally used to like send PMs to the store where you bought the shrink wrapped CD off the shelf and say, hey, I actually work for that company. Like, can I actually watch you install it? Like, it seems a little weird, but like they would do that and they would see it and they would see the first time use of what's happening. Like now with Zoom, it's super easy to do that. Like you can work with your customers, show them the product, watch them use it. Like but he did that like back in the early 90s would go and do that. Like, so that's like a lot of startups have that same story now, but like Scott was a pioneer like in that back in the day. Like that's so ingrained in Intuit culture that we stay so close to our customers. It's like, that's why people love our products. Like that's why that's why we're the most trusted brand, one of the most trusted brands in the world. Right.
So I want to ask a follow-up question. You talked about all these Slack channels, sort of the cross-functional buy-in for your PPP program. Are there lasting or I guess even short-term organizational changes that happen? Like did teams get rearranged? Like, can you take us through sort of, I guess, structurally, if there's anything going on there?
Not yet. Like I think that the way that Capital was built in the first place to work with these other surfaces, like the customer-facing surfaces, right? To work with QBO, to work with the payroll business, to work with like when you come through, you're landing on a landing page that we control. So it's like the way we code these, it's pretty modular and easy to use. The QBO team has a core focus on customer pain points they're trying to solve that are separate. Like that's not going to change. Like we have these mission-based teams We call it the triad with the developers, the designers, and the PM, the product managers, to go solve these problems. So like from the core customer experience perspective, those modules don't change. I think what we prove though is that cross-functionally and like broader organizationally, we're able to actually work together better than we thought we could. So the structure works. If you have the right mission-based like goal, it brings everybody together. The input goals you have like get wiped out, and it's a new focus, and everybody's bought into it. So the existing structure worked. It worked well, and it allows people to settle back into their day-to-day lives. I think about organizational structure a lot. Like I'm leading a startup within a big company and have to figure out how to make a lending business work with inside a SaaS software company org structure. We do that and it works, but there's so many other business units and teams. Like I think that the way it's set up actually worked pretty well. Like I can't think of a big change we need to make on a go-forward basis, but that's a challenge. Like how do you, in this remote world, like should you change your org structure to make things work better? I think like our mission-based teams actually work well in this Zoom world, right?
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that Capital is coming back online. It's already back online.
We never closed, right? Like we had to tighten the credit box dramatically, so we did a lot lower volume, but we are ramping back up right now as fast as we can to try to as customers are coming out of this and their revenue is starting to increase, we're able to serve them the capital they need to grow.
And so what is your perspective in the meantime that have like looking forward? Obviously there sounds like there's still a lot of recovery work that needs to be done beyond that, but like purely within Capital, like what are you thinking in terms of product or service levels or growth like going forward?
I mean, we like on the Capital business, we have a marketplace, right? And we had that marketplace when I got here 4.5 years ago, where we work with partners that serve products like factoring and merchant finance and SBA loans. And we don't think we can serve every product, right? So if you look at the matrix of products that a business may need from a capital perspective, they may need equipment finance. They may need a long-term loan. They may need a line of credit. Like it's very difficult for like one fintech to serve all of that, just given the complications of the operational structure of each. So we still have our marketplace. Many on that marketplace have completely tightened credit as well. Some of them have like stopped lending in the US, for example. But when they come back and they do, then we'll figure out how to plug them back into our customer base. Intuit is positioned well coming out of this, right? There's going to be the big players are going to be fine, like the Squares, Amazons, PayPals, Intuits of the world that have massive customer bases and have really good data to help with these risk decisions. They're going to do great and they'll come out. There are some other of the alternative lenders that like it's going to be challenging to maintain. Like they're keeping the option open from the venture capital perspective. Some of them will make it, some of them won't. Like the bigger players will. I'm confident that most of the folks that we know like will make it through. But it's going to be a challenge, and it's going to take time to grow back and take time to like go back to the capital markets and get the capital you need to kind of restart. But Intuit is positioned and we'll be there to help. Like if the other guys don't come back fast enough, like we'll lean in and we'll start offering more products to help serve our customers. So I feel great about where we're positioned and like in order to help our customers succeed. And like Fintech is here, like Intuit, like as I said it, like we've been here since '83. Like we're ready to go into the AI like expert future here. It's exciting.
Luke, thanks so much for joining us at the inaugural Resilience Conference. It was great to hear about the work you've been doing as part of QuickBooks Capital and Intuit. So thank you.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. It's fun to tell the story. Thank you.
Great. So we're going to take a bio break. It's 12:40. We'll meet back here at 12:45. So go do what you need to do, and then we'll be back.